tomorrow. 41-month sentence. And on our call, they said, we'd love to pay you to prepare us for our surrender tomorrow. I said, don't pay me. The only thing I think you should be investing in is the creation of assets to influence stakeholders, influence people who are going to determine how quickly you should get out of prison, how much liberty you should have in the halfway house. So don't pay me. Let me film a video that will help you, and I'll share with you other resources. Then I'm like, hey, let me knock out this live YouTube video while I have a little time alone today, while everyone is at school and my wife is in the office, covering one day on the inside. And I decided to pull a random day, April 24th, 2009, 15 years ago today. What was I doing during that day in federal prison? I'm going to cover that. As I share one day on the inside, I'm going to convey 5 salient points as I'm telling this live story, with hopes that it helps all of you do better. In speaking with these brothers for a few minutes and now filming this video, I advised them to get going very early in federal prison. Now, by the time I was at April 24th, 2009, I had already been in for nearly a year. So at that point, I had really mastered my environment. I owned it. Our team talks a lot about the U-shaped curve. You surrender, you're in this new environment, you're scared, you're freaking out, you're in jail, even though it's a minimum security camp where in time you learn the highest value is boredom. I'll touch on that in this video. But you begin ascending the U, then you're going to get to the bottom of this metaphorical U, where it's the easiest part of the journey. You got your job, you got your bunk, you know what you can do, you know what you can't do. You're visiting, you're calling, you're emailing, you're rocking and rolling, man. It's the easiest part of the journey, whether you're serving 1, 3, 5, 10, or 25 years, like my business partner, Michael Santos. Then guess what? You begin to ascend the U. So as I'm ascending the U, that's April of 2009, and I'm a little freaked out. I am suffering from what a lot of people who have been to federal prison can relate to, short-termitis. With a month until my release, I was sort of fixated on like, what is life going to be like after prison? Is all of this work I've done on the inside, is anyone going to give a rat's ass? Is anyone going to read my book? Is anyone going to hire me to consult? Is any school going to invite me to speak? What the hell is going to happen when I leave this place in about a month? So I was really struggling to focus during that last month. I took some comfort knowing I did as much as I possibly could leading up to that moment, but I articulate to these brothers, who I know is going to watch this video live or later today, if you are not prepared for your release, as you approach your release, you are going to be more freaked out than you already are. So I want you to begin ascending the U the second you get to federal prison, which starts with like planning your day strategically, productively. When I was in federal prison and after I got adjusted, or coming back to April 24th, 2009, I had established a routine where I woke very early in the morning. So I would start about 4 o'clock every single morning. Why is there value in starting early? It's very nice to get going while the majority of the dorm is sleeping. So I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would walk over to my cubicle. To my locker. I would open the locker. I'd have my couple Folgers. I would put a cup in, walk to the bathroom, fill it in the water spout. By the way, if you're going to use hot water, use the appropriate one. And have a cup of coffee, go back to my cubicle, have some fruit, have a cup of coffee, and I would begin to plan out my day at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I liked the time alone to think, to reflect, to analyze what I was going to do that day. It was very peaceful and quiet, because come midday or come 7 o'clock in the morning, it gets loud in that dorm. You got lockers closing, dudes making noise, burping, hollering, cooking, yelling, TV. It gets loud. So it's very nice to have time alone in the morning. So as I address 5 things I think anyone should do in federal prison, or at least in this video, wake very early. There are so many benefits from it. So I'd have that coffee, a little bite to eat at 4 o'clock in the morning. Then at 5 o'clock in the morning, there was what's called a count time. And in federal prison, all of you were going to get counted at various times throughout the day. When I was in federal prison, every single day, we were counted at 10:30 in the morning, we had to stand, 4 p.m. we had to stand, and then there was the 10 p.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m., and 5 a.m. Counts. The only time we didn't have to stand for a 4 p.m. count was during the Super Bowl. They did the count inside of the large TV room. Get used to getting counted. After that 5 a.m. count, I would go to the quiet room, where I would bring my big dictionary that I have in the other room, my dictionary, pen, paper, and I would immediately sit next to my business partner, Michael Santos, who had been there since 1 o'clock in the morning or so. Sometimes he was in there, sometimes, not, but generally I would work alongside him for the next 90 minutes from 5 a.m. until 6:30. And what I would do was I would write. And I derived such value and satisfaction in knocking out really great, well, I thought it was great, even though some people never read it. I derived value in creating content by the time I ever left the dorm at 6:30 in the morning, which is when they open the dorm to go to the chow hall. I found such value that between 4 a.m. and 6:30, I had already had a really productive morning while most good dudes are sleeping. What would I write from 5 to 6:30 in the morning? Well, I would write my daily blog. And guess what I wrote on the 24th of April, 2009? I'm weird, man. I wrote my dating profile that I was going to put online. And I did put online after I got out of federal prison. So I'll post it in this YouTube description, the actual blog that I wrote. But essentially, I said, if you're open to dating a dude that served time in a minimum security camp and learned his lesson, take a chance, reach out. I prove worthy of a second chance. Let's get together and talk. That was my daily blog for the day. And eventually I put something akin to that up on my my dating profile. That too sparked a lot of interesting conversation when women were like, you went to federal prison? Yes, I did. I wrote about it. I talk about it. I wrote a book about it. I've built a whole business and brand around it. Can you get on board with that? Thankfully, one awesome person, Sandra, said yes, and now we're happily married in Irvine with 2 young kids. 6:30, the doors open, and there's like a line of dudes rolling to the chow hall as we talk about one day in a minimum security camp. Now, where I served time at Taft, the dorms tended to open up either at the same time, or technically there were 4 dorms. They were supposed to get opened, and you're supposed to go to the chow hall based on who won the cleanliness inspection the prior week. So A, B, C, and D. So if dorm A won, dorm A goes first. Dorm D wins, dorm D goes first. A lot of guards did not give a rat's ass. They just opened all 4 dorms at the same time. You go down to the chow hall. When I would go to the chow hall, I had some granola with me in a bowl. I would leverage off the milk in the chow hall because at the time I only had $290 a month to spend in the commissary. And I did not want to blow some of that $290 on powdered milk. So I would go to the chow hall every day to leverage off as much food in the chow hall as I could. Technically, you're not supposed to bring your own food, granola or cereal in a bowl, but they really didn't care. Use that milk, eat, usually alongside Michael or a couple of friends of mine. There were some dudes who would like knock when they're done eating as a sign of respect, or I'm done. I never once knocked, but when I was done eating, I would leave and I would go back up to the dorm and I would spend some time with my good friend Andrew Alchek, who unfortunately died of a brain aneurysm on March 21st, 2010 in prison. Andrew got me into running. And from the day that I went to federal prison, the 28th of April, 2008, until April 24th, 2009, the day that I'm filming this blog one day of, I ran probably every single day. It was a transformative experience for me, and it was difficult and brutal because one thing I didn't do before I went to federal prison was exercise. And once I got there, you see this dusty dirt track, you know I love to say. And when I saw this track, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to become an athlete again. I'm going to exercise. This is great. And foolishly, from doing nothing for 3 years until thinking I'm an Olympic athlete, of course, I immediately got hurt. I hurt my ankle. I'm limping all around the compound. These dudes thought I was nuts because I continued to run through the pain. I said, I'm going to run every day while I'm here. And I pretty much did. So I'd get back upstairs about 7 o'clock in the morning, hang out a little bit, go into the stock market, go into the TV room and watch a little bit of you see the stock market, what's taking place, what's happening. Then at 8 o'clock, I would walk down to that track. Now, big change over the last 7 or 8 months of my federal prison sentence from the first 6 or 7 months of my federal prison sentence. And I need all of you because I care for all of you. You're my brothers and sisters, even if we never meet or speak. I want all of you to be productive while in prison. So many good people in prison adjust and spend their whole day in prison term exercising. Now, exercise is great, but some guys will walk that track 10, 11 hours a day, and then they come home and bad things happen. They put all the weight back on because, of course, you can't exercise for 10 or 11 hours a day. And they're not prepared to go home because all they've done is exercise. So I want all of you to exercise in dosages you can maintain. 2 hours a day is just fine. My first 6 months was like 4 or 5 hours a day. It was too much. I was not preparing to go home. So I would hit the track at 8 o'clock in the morning. I would walk one time around that track with Andrew. 3 laps around was a mile, though a lot of guys used to fight over how many times around was actually a mile. And I would exercise from 8 till 10 o'clock in the morning, typically running for 60 to 75 minutes, 8 to 10 miles. Then I would there weren't weights where I served time, though most prisons do have weights. I would do some push-ups, some pull-ups, fundamentally different than the first 6 or 7 months in prison. And I will admit, as I got closer to going home, those runs were very valuable for my mental health besides my physical health, because I would think that I'm going to be home soon. This experience is finally ending. Even though I would walk that track with Andrew before the run, I like to run alone. I still do. And I would just think and reflect about my experience, how far I have come, and soon I'm going home. So I would exercise for 2 hours a day. That's part 2 of the 5 things I want the brothers who called me today and all of you to do. Wake early, exercise in dosages you can maintain. They cannot take your health and fitness away from you. It feels wonderful to exercise in prison without the iPhone, without the best headphones, without the music you may want, because when you come home, it's even easier because you're going to have access to everything. If you can do it now, it's easier. Because when you go to federal prison, it's harder, but if you can do it there, it's fundamentally easier when you come home from federal prison. At 10 o'clock, you hear the guard say something akin to, "Attention all campers. The compound is now closed. Report back to your designated housing unit for standing count. The compound is now closed." So then all of the dudes around the track who might have been having their job in the chow hall, the recreational area, agriculture, warehouse, wherever, every dude is going to work their way back to one of their respective dorms. Now, at this point of my journey on April 24th, 15 years ago today, I had secured a really phenomenal and wonderful job. My first 6 or 7 months in federal prison, 6 months I had worked in the kitchen. Then after 6 months in the kitchen, I found a very desirable job working as an orderly upstairs in the dorm, which essentially I swept floors 15 minutes a day, 5 or 6 days a week. I tell these brothers and all of you, you have got to do your job. There will be people who will give you an opportunity not to do your job, who you can pay to do your job. Do your job and contribute, please, to this community of felons. It shows that you're committed to doing a measly job for 15 minutes to an hour or 2 a day. It shows that you're not above working, and other guys will appreciate that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And we shouldn't be applauded for doing what we're supposed to do, but you'd be surprised how many guys don't work, and your case manager might not say anything to you, or you might not think that they notice, but you're going to go in and ask for more halfway house time. And I can assure you, if you're not doing your job, they're going to know. Now, they may say to you, "I don't care if you clean the toilets or showers, I don't use them, but you want more halfway house time and you can't even do your job for an hour a day? Get out." They're watching, even if they don't know. Even if they don't care, they'd be watching people. Plus, there are prisoners. The two guys who called this morning said inmates. I said, they call us inmates. We're prisoners, okay? We don't want to be there. There are going to be prisoners, I told them, who are going to go into staff and say, "This guy isn't doing their job. This guy's running a business. This guy has an iPhone. Why would someone do that?" Well, they might want to cooperate. They might want to get more halfway house time. They want to turn somebody in who smuggles that hard-boiled egg out of the chow hall. People are always watching. They're listening to you on the phone. They're trying to read the emails that you write behind your back so that they get some cooperation credit with staff. People are always watching. Too many people go to prison, they lay low and adjust well, then in time they think they've mastered this environment and they get into trouble. That's typically the U part of this U-shaped curve, when people feel like, "I own this place. I ain't got nothing to worry about." I want you to never let your guard down, because your highest value is getting home safely, strongly, and proudly to your family. So we have the standing count at 10:30 in the morning. After the 10:30 count would clear about 10:50 or 11. Sometimes it would take the guard several times to do the count. Endure it. Don't complain. Some guys will say, one guy was very funny. He'd be like, "You guards are stupid. How many times does it take you to do the count and count 125 people?" That guy ended up in the hole, as funny as he was. So just stand there, quiet, let them do their count. Then around 11 o'clock, the count is going to clear. Now, in my case, at this part of my journey, it was now my time to do technically my orderly job. So I would walk to a room, I would grab a broom, and I would sweep the hallways and talk to dudes. "Hey man, how are you?" Now by then I had been there for a while, so I knew everyone in my dorm. I knew if I could pop into someone's cubicle or if I couldn't. Certainly people may say to you, if you've just gotten to prison, don't go sit on somebody's bunk, which I never did, but just don't randomly walk into somebody's cubicle. I would agree with that. But when you've been there for a while, you know who your friends are and who your friends are not. So I would sweep the halls for 15 to 30 minutes, hang out with my friends for a little bit, do my thing. And just like that, at 11:30, I am done with my job, people. What am I going to do now? Well, thankfully, I'm into hygiene. I want all of you to know. And at 11:30, the doors would open. All the dudes would go down to the chow hall for lunch, which I would then go take my shower. I'd run 8 or 10 miles. I'd already done my job. It was time to shower and a little bit of peace and quiet. After that shower, I would go back to my cubicle, usually by noon or so, change, and get on with my day. I typically did not go down to the chow hall for lunch unless it was maybe chicken or pizza or something pretty good. By that time, I had really mastered the art of paying guys in the dorm how to cook some of the greatest meals I've actually ever had in my whole life. So there's one guy, Jefe de los Jefes, they called him, who cooked some phenomenal meals. So we would buy stuff in the commissary, a few guys, we'd package it up, we'd give it to guys, they cook tacos and burritos. I mean, I ate as well as I've ever eaten in federal prison. We would pay those guys a book of stamps to cook the food. And you'll learn that staff tends to turn the other way from things like that. They know many guys in prison have been there for a very long time with nonviolent drug crimes. And they might not have the hundreds of dollars coming in every single month for commissary. And they know they're doing 3 or 4 jobs of other guys to make money. So they are okay with, or know that we're paying guys to cook for us. It is really a win-win. That's fundamentally different than paying someone to get an iPhone or paying someone to do your job or really engaging in the prison hustle. Staff knows this is taking place. So because I had resources and I didn't love the food in the chow hall for lunch, I would then eat something that I had paid someone to cook. And just like that, by 12:30, I've had a very good lunch, and then I get back on with my day. But here's a problem that a lot of people contend with in a minimum security camp, right? People call them country clubs or club fed. There's no fences or barbed wire. It looks like a corporate office park or a junior college. There's very little violence there. Now, there can be violence. If you act like a fool, you're going to get beat up. If you do things that you're not supposed to do, there are going to be problems. Without question, there can be violence there. But if you lay low, adjust, get into your routine, then you're going to have so much time alone. The problem with that alone time comes the boredom, the inevitable boredom, which can be the highest value there. And that's part of the reason I was never bored. The reason I was able to find a job for 15 or 30 minutes a day was because I had plans and I was pursuing things every single minute. Literally, I accounted for every single minute on the inside. I was never bored or wasting time. Probably the only times in prison can be kind of the weekends that lack the structure and discipline of the week. Holidays can be harder because everything feels slower. Generally, every single minute was accounted for. And probably the only negative feedback I got in federal prison was guys telling me, slow down, relax, enjoy yourself for a little while. It's okay to watch some TV. It's okay to take a day off from exercise, but I'm neurotic and I was scared about what life was going to be like on the other side. I could not waste a moment. But a lot of guys will find a job that's 8 or 9 or 10 hours a day, even though they don't need the extra money, because they don't feel like they're in prison if they're doing the out crew, if they're working in the warehouse for 8 or 9 hours, which can be great for exercise. And yes, you can make a little bit more money, but I knew many prisoners who did need to make more money who worked that 8-hour-a-day job because it helped pass the time. They didn't feel like they were in prison, but I knew many of those prisoners then approached the end of their federal prison sentence with more anxieties about what waited for them on the other side. Indeed, I covered that in the daily blogs that I wrote with Michael Santos's help from prison. So at 12:30 or so every day, I had the rest of my day to myself, and damn was I productive. I'm critical and hard on myself at times, but not when I was in prison. I would create. From there, I would go to the library and I would write. I would build my release plan. I would spend hours every single day writing my release plan. One of these brothers or defendants this morning said, is my case manager going to read my release plan? Who cares? Hope they do. Hope it influences them. Build it. But who gives a rat's ass if they don't read it? Are you basing your life on your happiness on if a case manager in federal prison reads your release plan? I hope they do. But if they don't, that doesn't mean you don't continue to build it and develop it and share it with your federal judge, with your case manager, with your probation officer. How long should it be? They asked me. I hope it's thousands of pages. Mine is probably 5,000 pages because I've continued to write every day in prison. And now I'm home for 15 years. The more I write, the more I build, the more authentic I am because I'm not asking any of you to do what our team has not done and documented. So I would go to that library at 12:30 in the afternoon, 6-7 days a week, unless I was visiting on a Friday or Saturday. And I would write. What would I write, you ask? All good questions. I would write things that would relate to the life I wanted to live after federal prison. There are so many guys on the inside who say, I'm reading. What are you reading? Does it relate to the life you want to live after prison? You're reading a John Grisham book? You might as well watch the movie. You're reading The Firm? Go watch the movie with Tom Cruise. Are you going to be a producer? How is that helping you? And I know every now and again I get some negative feedback from people who are like, dude, relax, slow down, let the guys watch some TV, let them play softball. That's true. It's your life. You do whatever you think is best that is going to help you overcome the collateral consequences that accompany going to federal prison. I did not want to play softball 6 days a week. Why? You can get hurt, and if you get hurt in federal prison, you are never the same. You lay there limp, guys aren't allowed to pick you up. You're in a minimum security camp that has fewer resources. I saw a guy tear his ACL. He's laying there. You can't help him. You can't pick him up. waiting there for 2 hours so they get staff over from the adjacent security, low security prison. That dude is never the same. Why? So we could play softball 4 or 5 days a week to pass the time. Then you're beholden to practices 4 or 5 days a week. Nope, not going to be me. If you want to be a softball player upon your release from prison, pursue softball. I encourage you to use every moment on the inside to prepare for the inevitable consequences that accompany a federal conviction. Right, document it, because if you're not creating and documenting it, you ain't got nothing. Zilch, nada, zero. What are you going to share with stakeholders, your probation officer, the nitwits that work in the halfway house? What are you going to share with funders, partners, a spouse? How are you going to build a business? You're not getting a loan. You owe restitution. Victims want your money back, want their money back. What are you doing? So when someone says, is the release plan too long or too short? Thousands and thousands of pages. Start with 1 page. Then 2 pages and grow it. And that's what I would do every single day in the afternoon. I'm grateful to have had a lot of help from Michael Santos and help keep me on track when some of my messaging, how do I say it politely, deviated into things that didn't really relate to what I would do when I would come home. I would write too much about exercise and just really things that wouldn't really impact people. I was struggling at times for content, which also leads into how I would spend every single day in federal prison, which is why I was never bored. From 12:30 till 4 o'clock, I would read books, and Michael encouraged me to write a book report. Why did I read the book? How will the book help me in prison? How will the book help me when I come home? You can go to my website and still see book reports that I produced in federal prison, as much as some people mocked and laughed at me for writing those book reports. But what was I doing while writing those book reports? I was improving my vocabulary. Indeed, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, I learned more than 300 vocabulary words in that book, words I still bring into my vernacular every single day when I speak, when I present, when I write, when I communicate. 300 words from one book, and it's probably the best book I've ever read, all in that minimum security camp library from 12:30 to 3 p.m. every single day. So I would read and I would write. And that turns into the third and fourth thing of 5 things I want to convey to you that all of you need to do in prison. Let's go back for a moment. Number 1, wake early. Number 2, exercise and dosages you can maintain. Number 3, build and write your release plan every single day. I don't care if your case manager doesn't read it or throws it in the trash. You're not living your life for the happiness or the approval of a case manager. Share it with your family every single day. And guess what? When I was in prison, there wasn't even email. Handwrite, pen and paper, drop it in the mail. Now, there was some value of just writing it, dropping it in that mail slot that had a lock on it, and putting it out to the world while I lived on this island. It was very nice to say, it's gone. If anything bad happens from it, what's bad? I'm already in federal prison. F it, just keep trying, man. Well, now you have access to email. Every single day you can write a page in your release plan, boom, send it out to the world. Every single day. And if you don't want to do it, that's cool. That just tells me you don't really want more liberty after prison. That just tells me you are influenced by imbeciles who tell you ain't nobody going to read your release plan or it's too long. It just tells me you are finding excuses. In federal prison, I resigned myself to the idea there is no plan B, because if you have a plan B, you won't work as hard. If it doesn't work out, you're like, that's okay, I have a plan B. There was no plan B with the loss of my licenses. And I knew at this conviction, my only option was to be able to communicate effectively, document and show why our team is worthy and capable of actually helping people, because without evidence, how do you actually know if somebody has done it? If someone says they can help you, is there evidence? If someone says they can help you prepare for a shorter sentence, is there evidence that isn't made up or hyperbole? Is it documented over a sustained period of time? So as I talk about April 24th, 2009, 15 years ago today, or one day in a minimum security camp, I want all of you to know 12:30 to 4 p.m. every day, totally obsessed, totally consumed with preparing for life after federal prison, following the model that my business partner had laid out since he went to federal prison in 1987. 3.5, 4 hours a day. In fact, towards the end of my sentence, I would tell myself, I think I need more time here. But maybe I shouldn't go to the halfway house. I'm so productive. I think I need more time here. I'm doing so much. Around April 24, 2009, the manuscript to Lessons from Prison was nearly produced and nearly completed. I'll get into that next. So at 4 o'clock in prison, we'd then have the standing count, just like we had the 10:30 a.m. count. So the same message would come that we heard at 10 o'clock in the morning. Attention all campers, the compound is now closed. Report back to your designated housing unit for count. Get your ass back to the dorm. We did. It looks like we froze, but we're back. I'm grateful. I don't ever complain. I'm grateful that many of you stuck with me. I'm back. We froze for a few seconds. This is the consequences of going live on YouTube. So after the count would clear at 4:30, it's then 5 o'clock. And by that time, I am absolutely wrecked. I am exhausted by virtue of waking early, doing my measly job, exercising my ass off, reading and writing for several hours. It now positions me to finish my fifth and final point on the inside, getting to bed very, very early. It can be very hard when you go to federal prison to adjust to a very loud dorm, a noisy dorm, a bright dorm. And for that reason, many guys struggle to sleep. They suffer from insomnia and they get into a routine where they can be up very late watching TV. By virtue of exercising really hard and waking really early, despite being a light sleeper, it enabled me to sleep through just about anything. By then, 10 or 11 months into my federal prison sentence, I'd also worked my way to the back of the dorm, which leads me back to something the guys who called me today and all of you need to understand. You're going to want to eventually get a preferred housing assignment. To do that, you need to be clean, have good hygiene. You want people to assess, is this the type of dude I would want to bunk with, right? And by virtue of kind of keeping my mouth shut and laying low and having very good hygiene habits, once some spots in the dorm opened up, a couple of guys like Jay and Steve said, hey, my buddy just transferred to the drug program. You want to come and be my bunkie? Sure, that would be great. Move to the back of the dorm where it's fundamentally better than the front of the dorm where many new prisoners are housed. I want you thinking about this the day that you get there. Guys might not talk to you, but they're assessing, who is this guy? Is he a complainer? Is he going to do his job? Could this guy be a good bunkie? Is this someone who's going to lay low? Is this someone that I could associate with? These are things I want you to consider. Going to bed very, very early enabled me to then avoid a lot of the problems that are pervasive in a federal prison, which is how I'll begin to wrap up or make my descent in this video. While I'm in the library from 12:30 to 4, there are guys that might not be they might have a different routine. And I want to be sympathetic and understand prison is not easy and everyone has their own difficult journey. And it's very easy for people to say you served a year in a measly minimum security camp. That's true. My journey was easier than most, but I saw guys serving 5, 10, 15, 20 years do it. I saw my business partner serving 25 consecutive years do it every single day. So if they did it, I told myself, I can do it too. The problem is a lot of guys don't do that. They would spend that 12:30 to 4 p.m. just watching TV all day, or walking the track all day, or playing table games or dominoes and things that just don't relate to the life they want to live after federal prison. Or there's the pity party or complaining. The great thing about complaining is it will eventually be your term and your time. And there's a sense of connecting that comes with complaining, like a sense of camaraderie. You know, it's depressing, but still there's a connection that comes from it. So there will be guys that walk the track or hang out in the dorm or library that will do nothing and complain about the plight that is their life. They blame their judge, the lawyer, everyone else but themselves. And what happens is they rationalize that there is no life after federal prison. So why prepare? Or there's a life, but it won't be the life they once had. There's nothing coming for a convicted felon. Why even begin preparing? So as you go to federal prison, I want you to assess your environment and I want you to let friendships happen organically based on people who have similar values and goals. You can't force it. You can't magically create a friendship, because if you do, it could be with someone who has different values from you. They might speak with staff, they might complain, they might not do your job, and just like that, you're associated with them. April 24th, 2009 was not unlike any other day of the 388 days I served in federal prison. Waking early, going to the chow hall, exercising deliberately, writing and reading for hours on my release plan. Towards the end of that journey, or April 24, 2009, Michael and I were finishing the manuscript to Lessons from Prison. So after the count cleared at 4:30, Michael and I would spend a couple of hours going through that manuscript, making typos, corrections, changes, and then sending it back home to his wife, Carol, and my mom, who was helping edit and produce the actual manuscript. And by then at like 6:30 or 7, man, I'm like, that's a wrap. I'm exhausted. I can't even function or stand anymore. In fact, sometimes I would be so exhausted in the afternoon, I had this tendency to fall asleep standing up, which apparently, according to some guys in the dorm, was kind of weird. was a little bit weird, but I went at it all day. As I wrap up this video one day in federal prison, I don't want any of you to, I hate when I hear it's boring. I hate when guys say it's like Groundhog Day. I hate when fools say you have no control in federal prison. You're a number. That's all nonsense and garbage, man. Viktor Frankl found meaning in the concentration camps in Germany. Malcolm X found meaning in federal prison. He educated himself in harsher environments than we will ever endure in a minimum security camp. Don't think for a damn minute you don't have any control there because you're warehoused and you have to stand for count, or you're told when you can visit, or when you can eat, or when you can call home, or when you can email. That is utter nonsense. Focus on what you can control. When you wake up, when you write, when you create, when you exercise, what you say when you call home, how you respond in visitation. You disheveled? You off your game? Are you complaining? Are you focused? Are you expressing gratitude for the opportunities that remain? This is what I need you thinking about, people, if you're going to federal prison. It's a little blip in your life. And federal prison sentences are not as long as they used to be. Not with RDAP and Good Time and Halfway House. What I need you thinking about. One day on the inside, today's April 24th, 2024. I just recounted as best I could, April 24th, 2009. And then I was released May 20th, 2009, about 3 weeks later to the Halfway House, which I think I should cover soon in another live video. Until then, I'm so thankful that all of you are in the White Collar Advice community. I'm going to fire AT&T's Wi-Fi that we went out where I was free-flowing here for a few minutes, but I'm glad we're back. If any of you would like to speak with our team, we are here. If any of you would like a free copy of Lessons from Prison, visit White Collar Advice. We also have the book on Audible, and if you want the book, we'll send you the book at our expense. It's free. You just need to listen to it. It takes about 5 hours to listen to the book. You're awesome. Thank you for joining our community.